Hello YouTube, welcome back over to GamingHouse, and you're just in time for the lunch hour. For this episode of the lunch hour, I'll be going over the Metro series, as I finally got myself Metro Redux, since I had money. And while I played the first two, I never got a chance to play the Redux and all that, so since I've been playing that, I'm like, hey, I have a YouTube channel, I do YouTube-y kind of things, might as well make a video about it. Now, the Metro games are definitely among the favorite games of mine. Was a loss of words there. Developed by 4A Games, which were founded by people who had left the Stalker franchise and formed their own company, built their own engine, the 4A engine, which looks great on the games, by the way. And so far they've only been responsible for doing the Metro series. Those are the only two games, well, three if you count the Redux, under their belt. The first one, Metro 2033, was published by THQ, and anyone that knows THQ, of course, they knew they eventually went under, so Metro Last Light and the Redux were both published by Deep Silver. And another little fun fact about the 4A Games guys is they're actually based all the way over in Ukraine, and, well, now I guess they expanded out to Malta, which is a nation, by the way, I guess. I don't know, I had to wiki that shit. But in Ukraine, where they're based off, they actually had some rather unpleasant working conditions. If anyone's read an article, it's a little ways back and all that. They had multiple power failures and all that, including the heating being knocked out, having to actually work in like freezing temperatures, so being all in their coats and all that while working on the game. They had to smuggle in computer parts and everything else. And, you know, just kind of shows the dedication these guys have to their game. So, getting to the first game, Metro 2033. Of course, the year speaks for itself of where the game takes place, but it takes place after the nuclear holocaust / you know, end of the world scenario where everyone's launched nukes at each other, except this one takes place in motherfucking Russia. You play as Artyom, one of the groups of survivors that had made it down into the subway system before the bombs hit and basically wiped out the majority of humanity. Since then, they've been living down there for about, I think they said, 20 years or so, making a living for themselves, surviving, doing what they can, all underground, whilst also eventually having to fight off mutations and all that appeared, and fight off each other as multiple factions have risen up, with the Polish Rangers kind of as a standalone. They do their own thing, they just protect the Metro and themselves. You have people who adopted back up communism. They pretty much control a whole portion of the Red Line. You also have Hansa, which are more of a neutral group, just kind of look out for themselves and money interest alone. And you also have people who take up fascism and have dubbed themselves essentially Nazis. And some more story elements and all that to go with it that add to the whole apocalypse scenario, fantasy and all that I really like, is they have several weapons that have been made in the Metro, including the Bastard Gun, the Duplet and all that, which are all just manufactured from pipes and other things to make functional weapons, aside from staple arsenal of actual weapons available in the game, such as the AK-74, 44 Magnum, and other weapons. But the thing that really interests me and really coined this game for me is the use of military-grade ammunition, which is a better version of your 5.45 ammunition, causes more damage, sets enemies on fire for whatever reason, but it's more powerful, but that is also the main currency in the game. There is no money or anything else like that. It's this military-grade ammunition. So you always had to wager whether or not you wanted to use that ammunition for when you're in a tight spot and you need to fight out because you either ran out of ammunition, or use that to upgrade weapons, buy new weapons, and all that. Now getting to the quick rundown of the story. Once again, you play as Artyom. He's a silent protagonist, doesn't speak for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe only during loading screens. Loading screen syndrome is the only time he actually speaks. Play as him. He's a guy who's pretty much grown up in the Metro this entire time. You have one of your friends who is a Polish Ranger, Spartan. The name changes between both of those. They show up and address the threat of the Dark Ones, which are one of the new beings that have shown up through mutations and all that are immune to radiation, have these kind of psychic attacks and all that pretty much devastate everyone in the Metro, and no one's pretty much able to stop them, and they've been going through a few stations. Once he shows up and you deal with a little attack on the station and all that, he pretty much says, yeah, I'm gonna go leave and check out the situation. Here's my dog tags. If I don't return, go ahead and take these over to Polis. Let them know that, hey, you guys should probably get off your asses and probably take this pretty seriously. So Of course, he does not return, so you take it upon yourself to start making your trek to Polis from your station. And along the way, you encounter, of course, Nazis, communists, bandit groups, and all that, as well as having to fight mutants at several points and go back up to the surface, requiring you to wear a gas mask at all times due to the radiation to avoid the stations, and end up fighting even more monsters and seeing some of the great scenery, which is one of the highlights of this game that I really enjoy, is the atmosphere that really draws you in, being both underground and on the surface. It looks fantastic, it feels fantastic, at least to me. That'll go ahead and end the story discussion there. Now, of course, being a smaller developer and all that, they had some issues too with things. Controls weren't the best for the Metro 2033. They got better in Redux and Last Light, of course. And the voice acting, of course, isn't that great, you know, B-movie quality, but it's something to gripe about, especially if you know that this is a small group of guys, they aren't a bunch of AAA guys, etc. Now, we're going to go ahead and get into Last Light, which was an overall improvement of Metro 2033 gameplay and visual-wise, as we updated the 4A engine and all that, and of course, they upgraded Metro 2033 with the Redux. But getting into a quick, fun little fact, Dmitry Glukhovsky, who was the author of Metro 2033, 2034, and apparently eventually a 2035, of which the game is based off of, he had actually helped out a little bit with the story and all that with Metro 23, but was more involved in writing the story for Last Light. But as he was writing it, it actually became too big, and while they had to scale back some of his stuff and all that, he was like, I'm just going to go ahead and also write a book about this shit, because that's pretty awesome. Now, Metro Last Light takes place a year after the events of Metro 2033, and pretty much has you playing as our team again, who has risen in rank within the Order, essentially been accepted as one of the Spartan Rangers, and you're based over in the military bunker D6, which you had found in Metro 2033, and got back to working again. And according to one of the endings of Metro 2033, this is considered canon that you destroyed the Dark Ones using the missile strike. And with this one, the events transpire of another Dark One has been spotted by Khan, one of the characters from the previous game, and also other events including biological weapons being stolen from D6, along with the other stations and everything else, the Nazis, the communists, and all them hearing that about D6, which was supposed to be kept under wraps, that hey, they found this military bunker, which is probably chock full of, you know, weapons, other goods and materials. So everyone's kind of gearing up, ready to continue fighting each other, while also trying to make ways to D6 and find what's in it. And as again I said before, the controls and everything were greatly improved in this, which was a complaint of the first one. The visuals were improved with the updates made to the 4A engine, which made it looking pretty nice and everything else going on. They added new features such as your gas mask is able to get dirty while you're wearing it, so you actually get the option to wipe it down by tapping the left bumper on the Xbox and all that, and holding left bumper brings up your inventory, not your inventory, but brings up all your gadgets with like your night vision, your gas mask, and everything else. Now with Last Light, they actually implemented DLC to expand upon the experience aside from the Ranger mode, which everyone was upset about for being cut from the game and being sold as DLC, and underhanding tactics and everything else and shadiness aside, the DLC packs I found to be actually quite great. The first one was a faction pack, which lets you play as a Red Line Sniper, a Nazi Heavy Gunner, and a Polish Ranger, which I'll get more into the Polish Ranger mission later on. But each of those were a different experience, had new weapons, and all that included as well. The next DLC pack was the Tower Pack, which you played as a disabled ranger, and I would say their R&D division or so ended up finding a virtual reality simulator within D6, so they have you as an experienced ranger go into it first to kind of get a feel for it, see if they can use it for training and all that, see if it's possibly completed, and it's all just a bunch of VR missions and all that. It was alright, it's different, I'll give it that. And the last DLC pack actually allowed you to play as 3 of the characters from the story mode to get additional backstory and all that, see what they were doing. There was Anna, there was Khan, and I can't remember the last guy's name. I believe it was the Russian guy that you meet in the beginning. That's part of the Red Line, spoiler, etc. Now, where would I like to see in the next Metro game or so? Story-wise and all that, I have complete confidence in them of coming up with at least a decent story and all that for the next one, depending whether or not Dimitri's helping them or not. I found both Metros to be very entertaining. What I would like to see is actually a co-op game involving that, which I will now discuss, that Polish Ranger mission I talked about earlier, which was the best part of the faction DLC in my opinion, and I thought of this immediately once I actually played it, since during that mission you play as a Polish Ranger who is tasked with gathering materials and all that from the great library from the first game, and you constantly go to the surface and in the library to gather all these materials and all that they're looking for, also while exploring the area, coming back, rearming yourself, getting a radiation suit, getting an armored suit, and all that, and all this free roaming essentially happening, which was a great experience. I would like to see us take control of a small group of rangers, or like order guys, starting off at the bottom, working their way up top, based over after the events of Metro 2033, but before the events of Metro Last Light. We're clearing out D6 and all that, becoming established in there. We're going to other stations to help them out, maybe some are under siege, others just have problems and all that. We're reconning tunnels. We're going to the surface to gather the supplies and all that for various stations in D6. We're also just doing missions to go up on the surface and just recon and find more things. Maybe we're also doing missions to help caravans get from place to place and they'll come under attack from either bandits or monsters. Maybe we gotta go clear out bandits or nest of monsters from certain segments in the Metro line system. And of course fighting off Reds and Nazis occasionally, who are always just fighting each other and everyone else around them. But that's what I would like to see for the next Metro, at least. A nice, cool, kick-ass co-op game. I know 4A hasn't unfortunately dabbled in any multiplayer games yet, so it's very risque in their sense, but you know, they've been growing, they've been doing well, so hopefully they get a chance to dabble in that maybe, and we get to see that, because that'd be fucking fantastic. Now that's going to go ahead and end the video here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz, YouTube-y stuff. And as always, you're always welcome to come back over to GamingHouse for more gameplay and commentary.